And welcome to Tampa Home Talk. You got myself, Katrina Madewell, also my sidekick, Mr. Leo Kane. Am I too loud for you this morning?
Yeah, just a little bit of clipping. This is Leo Kane with Beryl, Engineering and Inspection, ready to hem-haw and jibber-jabber for an hour with my lady.
Well, before we get into the topic, which are 8 changes in housing trends since COVID started, you know, the COVID boom in real estate that I believe are here to stay. So we're going to talk about 8 trends that we're still seeing. And what sparked this whole thing was a report from Fortune.com talking about some data they had pulled from Realtor.com and the local housing market shifting, and this interactive map just showing how fast. So we're going to talk about that in a minute.
You know what I love? I love the fact that we talk about the data on a week-to-week basis, and we called this stuff a month ago.
Longer than that.
No,
I said summer, remember? And they're spot on.
But we called the actual shift, and we announced the actual shift, that they're just now coming around. So when we said this recession that we're currently in started on July 18th, when the other news outlets start picking up on that,
we were ahead of it.
3 months from now, you heard it here first.
Well, that's what happens when you look at the numbers so closely every week.
And that's why we're a Dave Ramsey LP.
That's right. Well, before we get into all this, I just have to say something because I know he won't say anything himself. But Mr. Pat George, you know, in his local favorite hangout place, literally saved somebody's life last week. Did CPR on them save their life.
Did they choke on a nacho or something?
No, just stopped breathing. And they thought he was joking, and he wasn't.
Were the prices so good and the margaritas were so flowing that...
You're not talking about any of this, Pat? He doesn't want to brag on himself, but I'm telling you, Pat George is a hero.
Wait, Pat George saved someone's life?
Yes.
Pat, you need to pat yourself on the back for that one.
He won't. He's quiet. He's not even talking.
I didn't know he saved someone's life.
Pat George literally saved someone else's life with 2 nurses right there that were just like watching it all go down.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Someone stopped breathing?
Yeah.
And he did.
They thought he was playing. His head was like down, and they like trying to get him to wake up. And the next thing you know, people are screaming. Pat George got him on the floor doing CPR, and boom. He's here today to talk about it.
Was Pat George using the new method, which is just chest compressions?
I don't know.
Or was he using the older method, which is 30 and 2?
I don't know. Which one were you using, Pat? Or the cat's got your tongue, or you're out of the studio?
Well, that's a true local hero, someone that doesn't want to brag about it or speak up about it.
He won't, yep.
But he saved someone's life.
You know how he's always joking? I really thought he was playing around, and he wasn't.
Was it? Well, I mean, we are a news outlet, so now that we've broke the news, hopefully it's real news and not fake news.
It's definitely real. I just don't know why the news doesn't pick up stuff like that.
I mean, he's a local hero, and I mean, normally he's a local hero because he helps you get to and from work, and he helps you to know whether or not to bring an umbrella or not.
I'd be curious to know how different the traffic is this week, being that all 3 schools went back in session on Wednesday.
Oh, it was insane. I was trying to drive to school, and I was trying to drive to work, and I'm like, my GPS is routing me around certain places I normally go, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then there were lines just wrapped around the corner.
Yeah, I went to the gym. I go like a little after 6 in the morning, and the school bus, which stops right in front of my house, stopped, and I'm like, oh, I better get out the door, and I know which way to go.
As a double income, no kid family, we call
Dinks.
Communities called Dinks. I have a question. How does the normal family do something?
What? What do you mean?
And that something is, how does a normal family, most jobs are 8 to 5. Mm-hmm. Most schools are 7:30 to 3. Mm-hmm. How do those children get picked up if the parents don't get out of work till 5?
Well, sometimes they have those after-school plays programs. A lot of them have places where basically they'll pick them up and take them, say, to karate or taekwondo or whatever.
So clubs.
A lot of them, yeah.
So basically,
or parents carpool, or like sometimes one parent will drop off the kids, like their kid and a neighbor kid or a friend kid, and then they'll go to school all day, and then the other parent will pick them up.
I've heard nightmare stories about parent carpools where last-minute changes happen and the parents, freaked out.
It could happen.
Am I allowed to say freaked out?
In this day and age of technology, when every kid has a cell phone, I just don't feel like it's a big deal. Just saying.
You know, the bigger question is, how do parents and family of 4 or 5 kids buy groceries?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's just so crazy. And then you have to pay for the child care, too, on top of it.
I don't know how single income families could make it. really, in this day and age, especially
How many
here.
single income families are left? I mean,
Yeah.
there's got to be a part-time job in there somewhere.
Yeah, the good old days where the mom would stay home and her full-time job would be a house and kid caregiver, like kind of like what you're talking about, I think they're gone.
So basically, you're telling me there's like carpool options, there's club options, there's stall the kid options. It just amazes me when I
My
think about it.
kid, so I'll tell you, like I was always that working mom. And so,
That's a good show, by the way.
well, the bus would always drop off like not too far in front of our house, and it wasn't an actual stop. And then we got a new bus driver one time, and they were like, "Oh no, we're not going to stop in front of the house anymore." So I actually got it added, and it's now a permanent stop, even though my kids are long out of school. And basically, the interesting thing about this is, like, because I have always had this quasi-flexible schedule, that when my kids were young, I would have them basically take the bus home. It would drop off right in front of our house, and then they would go inside the house and lock the door. So if I didn't make it back, they were, sometimes home alone, but
So if I'm looking to buy or sell a home, is having an active bus stop for an elementary or middle school a selling feature?
could be, yeah. It
Do you
could
see
be.
that in the MLS? I mean, again, double income, no kids. I'm not paying attention to this sort of thing.
It's a good point to bring up. I'll have to look at my listings, Leo, and ask that of my sellers.
It's an important question. It just dawned on me.
It could also be a detriment.
This whole
if you have someone considering a 55 and up compared to
7:30 to 3 conflicts with 8 to 5.
yeah. Are you seeing this with any of your team members?
No, I actually couldn't tell you which ones do or don't have children.
Oh, okay. Pretty in tune there. Nice job there, Leo.
Right. I'm the how do you say this? I'm the business owner that's looking out for their interests without knowing what their personal interests might be.
Okay, fair enough. Let's jump into the numbers, shall we?
The numbers.
Yeah. All right. So this week, our active listings coming in at 1,016. Moreover, I'm going to jump straight to the sold.
Oh my God! I've got like to say for the people that have smashed like and subscribe on the Facebooks, or for you people on the YouTubes, my face is like utter disgust right now. How does that? Wow, we're like nothing sold.
Stuff is selling, but that's 3 counties, 7-day trend. So it's only 632 of you sold a home, a single family home, in the last 7 days.
Is that because of interest rates, mortgages?
So we're going to get into
contracts
that.
falling through.
Yeah, it's
Are there
part of
just
it.
less people buying homes? I mean, we've got 963 on pending, so we're still flipped. We are still flipped.
Some of these I think are going to pull out, right, for various reasons. Like, we've seen all kinds of stuff. I had one that was crazy. I mean, if Adam was here, he could tell you about it. But literally, like, the loan to value was 15% at the 9th hour. The lender wanted to turn it down because basically they want a full replacement cost on an older mobile home that was in fantastic shape, by the way. A lot of land, great property, literally very small loan amount. Like, the loan to value ratio was under 20%. To me, it would have been a no-brainer. You just have them get actual cash value for the amount of the loan. And yes, it's minimal insurance, a bigger risk on the homeowner, but we had issues where she was recently divorced. We had alimony. We couldn't count as income, so our debt ratios were a little out of whack, even though she was going to be fine. So that's what I mean by the common sense lending practices are not really there. So
No, it's all a formula now. You get
Yeah.
chunked into a computer, and if you get chunked out in a certain bucket, you're
So we
not getting
we found
loan.
her private money. That's resources that we have, but not everybody does, and so that could have very easily been one of those pending that fell off the map and never made it to sold.
I just like, we announced that we saw a turn in July. We've been tracking the turn in July. The steep drop off was basically July 15th. So I'm saying July 18th is the start.
Yeah, the shift started in May, and then July we really saw it.
July is when it really took hold. I'm just amazed that, and I can't stress this enough. We're in an unprecedented time here in the Tampa Bay market, where your new listings are much higher than your sold listings, and they're even higher than your pending listings. We are in a market where inventory is on the rise. Things like home inspections become more important.
Very.
If you're getting older homes, to get your forced place insurance through Citizens, getting those 4 points, those roof certifications are even
People
more
are not
important.
skipping insurance. Like, I mean,
You can't.
inspections like they were. They're not skipping
No.
that.
Inspections
Yeah.
for a while were a luxury service. You didn't want to know. You didn't want to know if you were buying or selling a home based on what you got
Yeah, you
on
were
a
just,
report.
are you going to get a home?
You're like, what am I actually getting?
So when we come back, we're going to talk about this information that Fortune.com reported from some Realtor.com data, and the July inventory, according to Realtor.com, active listings jumped by 128,200 last month to 747,500. Single biggest jump the entire time this site has been tracking data since 2016.
Speaking of numbers.
Yep, that off-air number is 813-377-2775. We'll be right back.
Welcome home. This is Tampa Home Talk. Pat George forgot to let us know we were coming back, and I said I need a...
He wants to keep us on our toes.
I need a... Give out the off-air number again.
You can only squeeze it in once.
813-377-2775. That's 813-377-2775. We'd like to thank our live listening audience for tuning in during their drive to work or their first work hour.
Right here on Money Talk 1010. We're Tampa Bay's business address.
We are Tampa Bay's business address. We'd like to thank our Facebook subscribers. I'd love to thank the YouTube subscribers.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, guys. And share.
And we wouldn't be here without Katrina's generous donation to the radio station.
Yes. So today's topic is all about 8 changes in housing trends that we saw after the COVID boom that I think are here to stay. So before we jump into that, let's just recap what I dropped real quick before we went into the first segment.
Yeah, that was like a Hiroshima level drop of
That's
a bomb
okay.
there.
No worries. We're coming back to it. But Realtor.com has been tracking data since 2016. And so they reported
So we've been tracking it longer than Realtor.com?
No.
This piece of paper says otherwise.
2 years.
Okay.
Maybe a little more, but 2 years.
Anyway.
But 2016 is how long they've been tracking this sort of data. But they look at the number of active listings that get reported on Realtor.com, which, by the way, is not all of them, but the number of active listings that get reported.
And this is national.
On Realtor.com. So July saw a huge increase. It jumped over 128,000 in 1 month to 747,500 listings. And that's the 128,000 plus jump in 1 month is larger than they've ever seen. In June, the month before, it jumped to 102,900.
So, I mean, we normally see that during the summer. We see the real estate is very cyclical, but it's just when we have these trends upon trends and they're larger than they should be. And
it is. And seasonality, we do get more at this time of year, but this is an extreme jump. So this is definitely not all related to seasonality. So obviously the cool down has to do with the rising interest rates. And so they're watching basically the housing market flip from these pandemic housing highs, right, to the pandemic slump. And so
I guess my question is, if I'm a home buyer and I've bought in the last 6 to 8 months, I'm immediately thinking back to 2008, where I'm losing like 30% of my value, 40% of my value.
For one, my call early on, you can go back to our show archives and listen. I called about a 10% drop.
How would we go back to our archives and listen? You would use YouTube.
Yes, you could. They're actually more updated than the podcast, but you can go back and listen. I called about a 10% price drop. I think that'll be the most
10
that
to
we'll
15.
see. Yeah. Some people have different, again, it's all opinions, right? So the interesting thing about this article, and we'll wrap up with the opinion piece of it, but that's what I think. So especially if you got a mortgage, I wouldn't worry about it. Because that lower rate is going to way balance out.
If I was a new home buyer, I would be panicked. I'm like, my interest rates are 7-8%. My home values are predicted to drop 10-15%. What did I just do?
So if you're one of the millennial buyers and you're listening and you're concerned, right, about
Gen Z buyers.
Or Z, about what Leo is saying, I want to try to bring some calm, right, to your mind, because it all balances out. I can guarantee you, if you were renting before you purchased, go back and look at your housing trends over the last 5 years. Tell me how much your rent has increased. If it's not significant enough to still warrant the purchase, then maybe you might regret it, but I doubt it. I think more people are going to be happy about that, especially long term, than the people that didn't get in.
And the other thing you have to think of, too, if you have a mortgage, I mean, it's going to go up based on your insurance. And if you want to file for your homestead, so that's not really going to go up. So your insurance is the variable, but I guarantee you the increase in insurance is going to be lower than if you were renting, because when you're renting, you get the full brunt of the increase
All
of
of it,
insurance,
yeah.
and you get the full brunt of the property taxes, and you're not paying them.
Is not on the air, but some lady just called and said you interrupt her too much. Stop talking over her.
The interesting thing is basically the interest rates. So you're talking about insurance, right?
Right.
So that has a part of it. But the interest rates combined with the higher home prices in 1 year basically jumped 30%. That doesn't factor into hyper-local stuff, which is the insurance stuff that you're talking about. Make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I'm just like, I just want to set those buyers at ease, because if they were in a renter situation, their rents are going to still go up. So do we also, if housing prices starts to go down, but insurance is still going up, are we going to see rental prices level off? Or
They should. Yeah, they should definitely level off, which is interesting because I read another whole article about how like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and local people are starting to buy stuff all in and around their neighborhood to keep a lot of the investors out, which I thought was very interesting. But so the interesting thing about this is, so the homeowner, especially the new homeowner sentiment, right? It's a lot of the buyers right now. They have a lot of angst about the economy. They didn't maybe live through 06, some job security, inflation, like all of these things that are playing a part, that some of them are saying, maybe I'll just wait, right? We're seeing it sometimes on even our end and the people we talk to day to day. So the interesting thing is Realtor.com tracked 917 regional housing markets, and 897 of those saw rising inventory levels. So almost all of them saw more homes go up than before.
So what were these hotbeds of people flocking to?
So we'll talk about that because that's in the
I'm
report as
curious,
well. And they have this
yes.
whole interactive report that was really cool. You should check it out if you get a chance. And if you want it, just text us and we'll send you a link to it.
Where would I text?
813-377-2775. 813-377-2775. So 346 markets, at least 100% saw an uptick. In 57 markets, inventory rose by over 200%. So I mean, 200 more homes were available, right away in this March to July period than there was before, which is pretty crazy. And even places like Idaho Falls, Ogden, Utah, Provono, Utah.
I've never heard of these places.
Another place that's a very French name in Idaho I've never heard of, Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City saw an uptick of 355% in new listings.
But that's all the American Southwest, the big states you can't tell apart because they all look like boxes.
Well, one of the things they mention in here is that the Mountain West, the Southwest, the Southeast Regional, all these housing markets are going to see some of the swiftest corrections. That's what they're saying.
So I would say some of the hottest markets have been like Miami, Tampa, Austin,
Phoenix, definitely on the list.
Are we going to be some of the hardest hit by this?
Charlotte was really high on the
yeah.
list. Boise, Idaho was really high on the list too.
That actually makes sense. In a lot of the places you're mentioning, not Phoenix, but a lot of the other places, Charlotte, Boise, Miami, Tampa, these are all hubs for airlines. So it's easy to get to. And I think if you're a city that's easy to get, and we don't think about this because in the U.S. we have horrible mass transit. But if you look over the millennia at mass transit and where cities are put and how cities are built, they're all built around transportation. So if you make your city easier to get in and out of, you will attract more people moving there.
So these cities that had these huge influx of people moving there, these were like the go-to spots, right? For all these pandemic movers. Most of these people were white collar professionals that just said, if I can work remotely wherever, I'm going to live where I want to live. So the interesting thing is a lot of them are fleeing from places like San Francisco and Seattle, which have record ridiculous prices. So they're not seeing huge differences or changes right now because they were already high to begin with. But we're definitely going to see a flatten out. Inventory levels, they're rising so fast. They're up 96% since March of 2022. So there's a, and I've seen that myself. I literally had a seller that made this mad rush to get to the market within the last couple of weeks. And then we were priced at $750. Their neighbor with the exact same home came on the market at $700. They end up getting a contract, which, small little neighborhood, they all talk. So even though I wouldn't know that, they all knew what that was because they were sharing, for $685,000, and this was pre-inspections. And really, our house was nicer, but that one had a better backyard. So that ties into exactly what we're going to talk about today. But that house was chosen over ours, and then And this is what I said, like in my video that I send to my database, is we're not going to see like these crazy drops. We're going to see some, sure, a flattening out, leveling out, a little dip, but people are going to hold on to those low rates. And that's exactly what this seller chose to do, was withdraw the house from the market, list it for rent, and then just sit on it because they believe long-term it's going to go up.
When you're saying they listed for $750, their neighbor listed for $700, but took an offer for $685, that's 10%. So yeah, the $750 probably did the right move by pulling off the market.
So they reduced to $700 to be competitive, but the buyer saw our house and theirs and still chose that one, which I thought was odd. I would have picked my listing, not because I'm favorable, but the updates.
You would have chosen your listing.
The updates were nicer. I would have chosen that. When those are a couple of things on my list, by the way, but they just, when I asked them why they chose the other one over ours, they said they liked the backyard better. Literally, that was the agent's answer. So it's not just stuff I make up. We ask a lot of.
Well, I'm glad you got that information. It just amazes me, like, why some people would buy a home over another one for stuff that they're not going to appreciate as much. Like, I love the kitchen. Well, I'm in the kitchen every day. I love the backyard. I'm in my backyard maybe once or twice a week.
We ask all the time, because if I'm very actively servicing my listing. If we have somebody show it and they like it, but they don't end up making an offer or buying our home, I'm finding out which one they bought instead. And then we're looking at those side by side, trying to see how we stack up and why they chose that home over ours, right? Which is what every seller wants their listing agent to do. So if you're not experiencing this kind of service, you can call or text us at 813-377-2775, 813-377-2775. More when we come back.
Welcome home. Leo Kane here. Beryl, Engineering and Inspection. Welcome to the Tampa Home Talk at the Tampa Bay Business Journal. Your business...
Whoa, that was all wrong.
That was all wrong?
We're Tampa Bay's business address.
Business address, not the Business Journal.
On Money Talk 1010.
On Money Talk 1010. I'll get that right eventually, after like 7 years. But I'm here to offer you the tip of the week. And this is I want to tie back into that person that bought that house because they love the backyard. I want to talk to you for a moment about the importance of taking your shoes off before you go tromp things through your whole house. It is very important that some cultures have this where they don't allow shoes in the house.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a health and sanitary thing. So I would highly recommend, especially now that you've got your kids back in school, and if you go on dog walks, you might be stepping in dog stuff, do not wear your shoes in your house. You should take them off at the door, because all of these stuffs get attracted to the grooves in your shoe, and you tramps it through the house, and you're just asking for the spread of bacteria and or mold into your house. So this inspection tip of the week is actually a mold assessment tip of the week.
So you're a shoeless house.
Pretty much. We make everyone, even guests, take their shoes off. We even have like a little mud pit area, they call it, where the shoes go when you walk in. And it's because the last thing you want to do is traps in bacteria, traps in dog matter, traps in mold. That can spread.
All kinds of yucky stuff.
All kinds of yucky stuff, especially if you go from a little like 3x5 tiled area to carpet. That carpet is going to act like a car wash station and take all that stuff off your shoes in the living room. And then if you have people that like to sit on the floor, or they like to, if you have young ones that are crawling on the floor, it's very important. Just don't wear your shoes inside your house.
Yeah, I wish I could say we're a shoeless house. We are not, but maybe in the next one we will be.
You can be. And when we have like tradesmen over to do electrical work or handyman work, we actually have a box of those little booties.
The booties, yeah.
And we make them wear the booties, because a lot of times they don't want to take their shoes off. And I can't blame them. They don't know your house. They don't want to step on something like a tack or a nail.
Well, my feet always hurt because I have plantar fascia. So I have some of those. We leave them in properties all the time. So I'm going to have to keep them in my car.
Yeah, just plop them. We plop them on the handyman. He does the stuff. The one that gets us, though, is the guy that is in the booties, does the work, goes back out to his car in the booties, then comes back into the house in the same booties.
Take the booties off.
Take the booties off.
All right.
So this tip of the week is for hygiene, and this is your mold assessment tip of the week.
Makes sense. Total sense.
Big booties?
All right. Yeah, we do. They fit the big size shoes. Yes.
And we cannot lie.
So let's continue on with what we're talking about, this Realtor.com data. And there's some other mixed data in here too. And then I'm going to get to the 8 things that are the post-pandemic era that are never going to go away. So some of these fast-growing markets like Atlanta, Austin, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, they're all particularly vulnerable to oversupply, which makes complete sense.
What causes oversupply?
Too much building, not enough consumer demand.
So like in downtown St. Pete where they're building all these skyscrapers?
Could be part of it. Yep.
Or these up in Hudson where they're building whole subdivisions?
Could be part of it. So that there's another part too, talking about the builders. So I'll get to that in 1 second. But regional housing markets that become the most detached from this underlying economic fundamentals are now the coolest fasting ones. So they're saying basically like places, Denver, Nashville, they saw prices climb too high during the pandemic. And so once these super low attractive rates disappeared, the buyers are saying we're going to call off our search, which makes sense.
So let me ask you this. I know a lot of businesses are fighting the work from home trends that were developed during COVID. Is that having an impact?
I think so. Because I'm seeing people, if they can't take their work from home job, they'll just get a new one.
And they're finding that they really can't find a new one.
Maybe. I haven't looked at those numbers that close. Could be.
I've seen a lot of companies moving now towards a shift or a split where they want you in the office 2 or 3 days a week.
That's
and then
fair.
you're in the field or you're working from home 2 or 3 days a week.
Especially with soaring gas prices. I mean, it's fair and it makes sense, right? But also, according to Moody's Analytics, the regional housing markets that's currently overvalued by more than 25%, they're saying they're very, very likely to see prices decline between 5 and 10% over the next 12 months. Boom,
Sounds
exactly
like
what I said.
Tampa.
I was right. Well, we're actually a little under. So look, here's a little map. We're here. So we're not as high as some of the other ones. We're definitely not low.
Oh, no, we're definitely in the higher.
But we had a long way to go, I think, before we started. So they're also saying, too, I think I skipped past it, but home builders actually currently have record number of homes under construction. Because, they track the permits, how many permits are going in, that sort of stuff. And they also have a record number of unsold homes under construction. So builders, we're seeing it, where they were trying to, offer agents a ridiculous, very, very small compensation, sometimes for months or years worth of work, are now offering full boat and bonuses to get properties sold. We're seeing buy downs come back, all kinds of stuff like this.
I've seen it on the construction side too. I mean, it used to be we talked on the show 2 months ago that if you wanted trusses for your house, which are the things that hold your roof up, you're going to have to wait 8 to 12 months and you're going to have to pay 3 times the price.
Yeah.
So we started designing what we call conventional framing, which was popular in the pre-60s, where they just assemble your trusses in the field off plans. Well, now truss companies are slashing prices and begging builders to take their trusses because a lot of builders have stopped building homes as fast. They need to sell what they have before they can build more. So we're
literally at the beginning of the year, Tibbetts said they weren't even taking any new trust orders at all.
And they're one of 2 companies that do trusses. Now Tibbetts is begging builders.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how the tides turn so quickly? Anyway, so the interesting thing, just to kind of wrap up on this article, this is exactly what we talked about earlier, but they're saying nationally, all these industry insiders, right, that are considered the experts, they all have super mixed feelings. So they're saying forecast models by Mortgage Bankers Association, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, CoreLogic, Zillow, all of these have U.S. house prices moving higher over the coming year. Meanwhile, modest home declines are currently being forecasted by a couple different real estate people, Capital Economics, Zelman Associates, Zonda, and more. But it's just interesting because, again, we're just going to see that leveling off.
Were you telling me Zillow is overvaluing houses again?
Yeah, they got out of the iBuyer market for a reason, right? Yeah, if you saw their losses, some of these companies, it's really crazy. Compass Real Estate and Zillow and Open Door and all these companies just run a loss. And I don't know how shareholders actually buy their stocks, but they do.
Come to think of it, one of those we buy your home on we'll buy your home for any price organizations, the ones we don't mention on the air, that we actually did design work for, they've stopped using us. And I don't think it's because they've gone out of business. They just don't have the homes.
Yep. Yeah, they're trying to unload what they have, I think. So 8 changes that we saw after the COVID and housing boom that are here to stay. And this will definitely roll into the second segment, but we're going to get through all of it in this hour. But number 1 is more demand for larger space. Right? So this remote work, people like working remotely. Talk about that demand a minute ago. Permanent cause for the need to work at home space. So people either needed the extra office, a den. In many cases, you had 2 remote workers, right? So we talked about the double income, the husband and the wife both working, or both spouses working. You have 2 remote workers now, where maybe you didn't have any before. So your house may not have been set up for that.
Yeah, we have the home office set up in my house where it's set up with 2 stations. So we've got me in one side of the room and then her in the other side of the room.
But you have a pretty good sized house, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could actually each have our own room, but
yeah.
She won't let 2 rooms become an office.
So here's the thing. People were tired of, and this is what we saw too in the field, and that's why I put this together. People were tired of having their office like in a closet. I saw that more than once. In the garage, I saw that. The dining room.
Hey, a lot of good businesses have started in the garage.
Definitely. Corners of the bedrooms, like all of this sort of stuff. But according to May 2020 Zillow survey found that 75% of the respondents working from home during the pandemic wanted to continue to telework at least half of the time once places reopened. And if long-term work remote were possible, 66% of them said they would move because of it. And we saw that.
I mean, that also sets up what's known as the COVID ceiling for employees. A lot of times you can do employee politics to vie for raises, promotions, cross generation, getting on larger teams. And if you're all working from home and you're all remote, you lose that ability. I mean, I could easily see, and I've seen the statistics, that if you are a remote worker working from home and you're looking for job advancement, you are at a severe disadvantage.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. So number 2 on my list is more suburb living. We're just seeing a lot more of this. So more space versus a smaller space, more expensive. And basically, they're not worried so much about like the faster commute time to work, right? So they're willing to give away, say, a condo or an apartment or whatever downtown to get a larger home in the suburbs.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. You have to think that if I'm working from home and I need to dedicate a room in my house to working from home, I need more space. So paying $1,500 a month for a 1-bedroom condo in downtown Tampa versus paying $1,500 a month for a 3-bedroom in Bloomingdale.
Exactly. Yeah, there's some people in these larger, more expensive metro areas are just not willing to pay these premium prices, for proximity to amenities that weren't available during the pandemic, like restaurants and museums and theaters and all this stuff that shut down. But the demand really boomed in these more urban areas, and we saw that here too.
So is that going to be the trend of pushing the white-collar office professionals into the suburbs, and then rents are going to fall slightly because that's where the service workers are going to live?
It could. I mean, very often you see communities and metro areas that have those little cyclical dips where good areas become bad ones, and then they get re-boomeranged into good ones, or re-gentrified, I guess is the technical term nowadays.
That's a bad term.
Well, but change, right? They go through these neighborhood changes. So number 3 is upgraded homes. So we saw a lot of people move for upgraded homes. So they wanted more of that at-home entertainment, that staycation feel, better, larger outdoor spaces, so more land. We saw a lot of things like that happen post-pandemic where people wanted those changes permanently. And number 4 on the list is backyard amenities. So that was a big one. So the larger yards, people wanting to be on the water, right? Water frontage, a place where they can put their boat. Because if you remember, when the pandemic was on like extreme lockdown, what happened? People went on the boat.
Everyone wanted a pool.
They wanted a pool, and they went on the boat. And then you saw literally boats tying together. And then we reported that, remember in Miami, where boats were out tying off out offshore. They were like, no, you guys can't be doing this, right? So number 5 on the list is swimming pools. And then when we come back, we're going to wrap up with the final couple that we have. 813-377-2775. 813-377-2775. Next 2 are pretty fascinating. They're going to tie right in here to stuff we're seeing in Tampa. So if you've got a question, you want some information, you want the resource, you want links, you want some of this data, call or text us. This is our off-air number, and that is 813-377-2775. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, and you're listening to Tampa Home Talk. We'll be right back.
Welcome home. Oh, this hour has zoomed by so fast.
Yes.
So fast. We didn't even get to Adam's insurance tip of the week. Didn't even get
Well, he
there.
wasn't here, so he got skipped.
Okay, so 813-377-2775. If you are having trouble with your homeowner's insurance because your carrier went under or got derated or delisted,
There's a lot of that going on right now.
and you need insurance fast, make sure you text insurance to 813-377-2775 so we can get you hooked up with Adam Talley from Talley Insurance.
Definitely, right on time. Good little plug for him. It's perfect.
Yes.
All right, so next on my list of the changes we saw after the COVID housing boom, the trends that I think are here to stay, the multi-gen housing. We're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing basically parents and kids either selling homes, cohabitating into one dwelling, or reducing the housing cost for both. Some of the younger generation maybe lost their job and were forced to boomerang back home.
I mean that makes sense. I mean, if you look at housing from 100, 200 years ago, it was all multi-gen. You had larger homesteads with whole families living in them. That actually just makes sense.
I don't know if you remember, a while back, we did quite a few homes on tiny shows. Remember how the trend was kind of going towards the smaller home, like more living, smaller home? The interesting thing is since the pandemic, the size has actually grown. So I pulled a lot of data on this because we were talking about the multi-gen and people living together. So I pulled data looking at Q1 of 2020. The median price here in Tampa was about $240,000. And the median size home was about 1647 square feet. That was the median for all the stuff that's sold here in the Tampa Bay metro area. So I compared that to Q1 of 2022. So just 2 years later, peak of the housing boom, right, post-pandemic, there was so much data actually in terms of closed sales that I had to pull them all separately by data. So I had to pull Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas, and then I had to average them all out because my initial search pulled them all. But the second time around, there was so much data, I had to average them, pull them separate and average. But anyway, when I pulled this, it was now at this point, Q1 of 2022, the median price jumped from $240 to $389 in 2 years. Big difference, right? And then the housing size went from 647 to 2011.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. You think about the tiny home fad. The tiny home fad was there because you had very active people who wanted a smaller space because they spent most of their time not in their home.
Right.
COVID rolls around.
Everybody's got to stay in.
Everyone's got to stay in. People realized, hey, I need more space. Not only do I have to live here, I have to work here. So we're going to see a drastic increase in the footprint of your home, and that's a drastic increase in price.
The interesting thing too about pulling all this data separately is Pinellas always had a smaller. They were just a smaller footprint in general, and actually lower. So 16, 17, so lower than the whole average that I had pulled 2 years before. But Pasco was 2273 and Hillsborough was 2142. So the number of homes that were over 3,000 square feet was actually quadruple what it was in 2020.
Oh, I believe it. And you also have to think Pinellas is basically built out. Pasco, you can go north. Hillsborough, you can go east.
They're building homes bigger.
Yeah, Pinellas, you can go up. That's where you get. Pinellas, you're vertical. But I mean, in Hillsborough, you've got more land. Pasco, you've got more land to build. So it makes all of that makes sense to me.
Not Hillsborough. Hillsborough run out of land too.
Yeah, I mean, lakes. But you get out towards Lakeland in the Plant City area. I mean, that's...
They've got a little bit. And it's a bigger county, much bigger county than Pinellas. So, and then finally, the last one on our list is vacation town living. So the remote workers, I know. I was wondering if you're going to notice that. I combined a few of them. Okay, so it's actually 7, not 8.
You said 8 changes, and now you're saying our last one's number 7.
I wanted to see if you noticed that. Yeah, I did combine a few.
I know numbers.
So, but anyway, vacation town living. So these remote workers, it drew people to want to buy. Or buy a second home or either live where they vacation or in an area that was more desirable than where they were living before. So this is why Tampa saw such huge growth like over the last 2 years. I mean, those numbers alone are crazy. That the median price went from $240 to $389 in 2 years.
But you did mention that the size of the purchased went up. So now you have to normalize that data. Here's the science numbers come out. You really got to look at that data then on a price per square foot.
Okay, well, you do the math.
Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that's a way to normalize it. So if you're telling me that the median price jumps from $250 to $350, and if you're telling me the size of the home jumps from $600 to $2,000, that's a math matrix that needs to be done to see what is the price per square foot doing. And that's
right.
how you compare these numbers.
I'll do it for you real quick. Here you go. Here's your first one, and I'll go ahead and do your second one. Okay?
So the first scenario where we started was $145 a square foot. So that's what you were looking at in 2020. And now you're looking at $193 a square foot. So what's that telling me is that is the true data. It is increasing. You are now looking at apples and apples.
Sure, that makes sense.
You just have to do it. I mean, the numbers on their own, when you're increasing in both the size of the house and the price of the house, well, yeah, I'd expect the more expensive home to be larger. But here we're showing an actual. This is a 25% increase.
Well, it's interesting you say that because historically speaking, when we look at trends and say overall, like in markets, and I'm looking at a neighborhood and I'm looking at the data in that neighborhood, the bigger homes always usually end up going for less price per square foot than the median ones. Mm-hmm. And the smaller ones always end up going higher than where the median is.
Well, that makes sense. But here we have a 25% increase on paper.
Yeah. But we saw it the post-pandemic era. So what do you think about this? It is 7 because I combined them. But this was 7 trends that I think have changed. I know for a fact they've changed.
I think some of these are here to stay. I mean, the tiny home fad got destroyed once everyone was quarantined. And it's like the allure of, well, I can take my home anywhere to enjoy the joy outside of the home. Well, I can't be outside of the home.
And you can't go anywhere.
Can't go anywhere. So then we started seeing the other trend, which was, I went to Hawaii back in October, and half the people I met were people who worked in California who had permanently remote jobs.
Wow.
But now these people are being recalled back to California. So what are they doing with the homes in Maui and Honolulu and Big Island?
What's their prices like in there? Are they dropping?
I haven't checked that market. I would call or text 813-377-2775 and ask Katrina to let me know what's going on with the Hawaii real estate market.
I actually have some contacts there. We're going to have to ask them.
I'm curious because a lot of those California workers are being recalled. In Seattle, I kept meeting people from Seattle. I hung out at a lot of breweries. I kept meeting people from Seattle and from California who lived there now in Hawaii because, why the face because I hang out at breweries?
No, because I'm thinking, like, if I lived in California and I moved to Hawaii, I wouldn't want to go back to California. That's like living in Florida and going to the Caribbean and then saying, go back to Florida.
Jobs don't exist in Hawaii.
I guess. All right. So this is Tampa Home Talk. It's been a fun hour. I hope you guys enjoyed the data and the information, and we gave you some valuable insight. Don't worry, the housing market's not going to crash. It's just normalizing. If you want some information or you just want to know what your home value is worth, we're happy to provide it to you. We do it for our clients every year after we sell them a home. 813-377-2775. That's our off-air number, 813-377-2775. Love where you live or we'll fix it. Welcome home.
Love where you live?